All right. So thanks everyone for joining me on this webinar talking about some changes that are coming with the 5.14 release. So we started that process this week. These will typically be cases where we update lead systems over the next 2 weeks or so. So I just wanted to go through some of the new and changes that are there. We have one big one that we'll cover first and foremost, which is how API keys will be managed moving forward. And then we'll get into some of those other improvements. So I'm going to go ahead and mute my face so that you don't have to bear through that along with this. All right. If I can figure out how to do that. Okay. So we're going to jump right into a lead system just to kind of give you a high level overview of what we're going to be looking at. So first and foremost, the new API key management. We do have two-factor authentication for users, so it's a security improvement. Just recap the SMTP management tabs in your lead system. We do have some changes to the UI in the leads tab that relate to saving filtering options as well as additional exports. And then when it comes to webhooks, just covering the process of being able to add a custom delivery, and then some new webhooks that we have. Something that is not part of necessarily 5.14, but is relatively new to the lead system is the partner CRM status, ways that you can close that feedback loop. We do have some new reports that I think anybody operating in Ping Post or collecting that feedback can benefit from. And then finally, we have a couple of quick adds to remove some of those required fields, make that setup process for a vendor and source a little less arduous. So in terms of questions, please feel free to use the chat and I'll keep an eye out for those. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody just for the purposes of going through this. But again, any questions, just put them through the chat and we'll be able to address them. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and log into our demo system here. The first thing that we want to cover is the new API management process. In your settings tab, there is a sub tab now that will be called API keys. First and foremost, all of your existing API keys will be continue to operate as normal and no changes need to be made. So this is only for creating new API keys moving forward. All of your existing ones will transition and continue to work as normal. So there are different places where you can grab an API key. If you were to go to those places that you would normally grab it, you will see this here with a link back to the API tab. So when we're on this page here, this is where you can manage all of your APIs, API keys. And so one big change from a security standpoint is to decouple the API key from a specific user and assign it more to the use case or the specific API function that you want to use. So we're associating the API key more with the use case than with a specific user. So on this page, this is where you can do various searches depending on how many API keys that you have. You can view the API key, and you'll notice that you must be in secure mode in order to do that. That's a logged activity. You can edit the API key. And so we'll go through this process of creating a new one here in a second. There is a copy option as well as the history. You can delete it or you can make it not active if it's more of a temporary, and you can also set an expiration. So maybe there was some use case where it was a temporary authorization that you wanted to provide. You can automatically expire these API keys. When we look at creating a new one, this is who is the API key intended for. But when we select, and it doesn't matter who we select, it will draw the list. But this is only for label purposes. It is not tied to this user. So if you do delete the user that is associated with, it will not deactivate this key. It's an important point to make. Next up, you'll have a list of your APIs. So the more common ones that you use will automatically filter the top. You can also make them favorites so that they also appear here. Any custom APIs, and then typically grouped by lead, partner, vendor, payment, filter, inbound phone routing, and then all others. So you can select whatever or as many API keys that you want this particular API key to be valid for. So we can do multiple ones depending on the use case for that specific API. We can then name this, and then again, set the expiration date. So depending on the use case, we can allow specific IPs or countries, depending again on that use case and how much control you want to have over who is accessing your lead system. When we create that API, then we're just going to go ahead and copy that to the clipboard, pop that into our email to be delivered along with the rest of the specifications. All right, so that's going to cover the API key management. It's a relatively simple UI. Just because of how often they're used, it's important to know this new tab. The next thing that we're going to do is 2FA. So in your lead system, you can manage your 2FA. So this may be done by an email code sent to the specific user's email. I use Google Authenticator, so I would simply go through, scan, scan this option here, and then click Setup scan this option here. I enter the first and second authorization code that comes on my phone, and then click the Setup Google 2FA, and that will load Boberdoo into your Google Authenticator, and then go through the typical 2FA process of entering that 6-digit code from the Google Authenticator into the browser before accessing. Very similar process with the email. Obviously, that's being delivered via email versus the Google Authenticator app. A little personal, non-compensated plug. Obviously, it is a pretty easy app to use, the Google Authenticator, and more and more companies are starting to enforce this. So if you don't have one yet, you will be in the near future. Next up is the SMTP. So just as a reminder, all clients are on their own SMTP. That is so your deliverability does not affect any other Boberdoo clients or vice versa. And so you have access to edit and change your SMTPs through this tab here. If this happens to not be enabled in your system, please let us know and we can do so ASAP. Some new changes with 5.14 are the ability to also add and differentiate a from email and a from name. So that's going to give you more flexibility in how these emails look coming out of your lead system. So next up, we're going to go to the Leads tab to take a look at filtering options. So you may have noticed a change in the past, I believe earlier this year, where when you navigate from lead type to lead type, the date is reset. This is something now we have a solution for. The reason that we removed this functionality was because of the heavy loads. If you could imagine somebody selecting, all leads sold to partners all time, and then every time they go back to that tab, having to reload that entire query, put quite a strain on resources. So this, though, allows you to save that date range so that if you were to navigate across multiple verticals, it's going to save you that click. It's just this simple button here. Then as you navigate from lead type to lead type, it will show all of the leads in that same date range. Now, this is a demo system, so there's no live traffic coming through basic insurance, but give you an idea of what that is. The other template and filtering option is that is new with 5.14 is the ability to save and load filter templates from the leads tab. So when you are going through your normal filtering process, whether it's all leads or just pings, whatever that may look like, specific partners, when you go, if this is a search that you regularly perform, you can save this as a template so that it's easily accessed. You can see new ones here. You can create one, save, or you can load existing templates. So when you save templates, they will appear in your drop down here. So again, working with a combination of saving your date range and then loading up all filters or pre-saved filters is going to allow you to more quickly access the relevant leads on your leads browser. Okay, next up is some fields that have been added to lead exports. This is something that I know a lot of people that are digging in and working in Ping Post have been asking for it. So I think it's an important feature to cover. So in the case where we are filtering for leads that were delivered to specific partners, now, of course, being a demo system, not a lot of data there. So, and this is something, if we are looking to export a CSV, we can now include additional ping-related or additional fields. So the first is the best price returned. The next one is the ping response prices. Next up, we have the delivery name. Oops. And then this is poor formatting on me and our agenda. So that is related to the next tab. These are new fields that can then be exported. I would also bring this up, and it's a good point, is that any of these fields are in red here appear because we went through the filtering process of looking for leads that were sold to specific partners or all partners. This obviously differs from leads that have come into the system because these would not have any unmatched leads, for example. All right, next up on our list is the, excuse me, is the password protected timed reports. So in your lead system, there are about 70 standard reports. They can be all set up to be delivered to you on a time basis. While there are multiple options for delivering these, whether it's Amazon S3 or an SMTP, one change that has been made is that email reports are going to require a password. So when you are setting up a new timed report, if you select email, that password will be a required field. However, if you have reports that were previously set up but that do not have a password, this is where you're going to see this error. You can click this button, then enter that password so that that PDF can be opened by, or excuse me, that export CSV export can be opened by the recipient. You will also notice then that the file is always zipped, and that is so that password has to be entered in order for it to be open. Right, so jumping on to webhooks. So one new option in the lead system with regards to webhooks is the ability to add a custom delivery as a communication method for a specific webhook. So the use case that we're going to go through as the example is a lead coming in, going unmatched in your system, and one that you want to put into a drip email marketing campaign, maybe to cross-market them to another service. So again, our webhooks, we'll cover some new ones. There's an extensive list of commonly occurring events, and you can set up automation around all of these. So this is a great way to take some of this heavy lifting and manual work off of your plate. So in this example here, we went through when a lead is unmatched. You can select function as the notification type that will pull up this list. Delivery wizard is one of those. This is going then simply enter in the ID of that custom delivery that you want to use in this webhook. So lead delivery ID 100. If I go to the custom delivery wizard and I find ID 100 is going to be the constant contact email drip API. So I can then do this by setting up that delivery, utilizing the wizard, which is a lot easier than going through the manual process of building out the get or post in the webhook itself. Now, lastly, with regards to this unmatched lead, I can then apply different rules to that, whether that is by source or by partner. And then if we look at our new matched lead rules, which has a different set, you will see that you can apply it also to partners or partner labels in addition, or exclusivity. So speaking of webhooks, there are two new webhooks that relate to refunds. The first one is account refund limit reached. And so they are in alphabetical order. This is actually going to be that first one. And then, like all of our webhooks, there are magic strings that are associated with it so that you can populate, whether that's an email or a post out, so that you can communicate this information however you want. So the next ones are, we have some additional refund-related webhooks that are based off of the decisioning or processing. So if you are looking to so if you're looking to set separate instructions based on whether or not a refund was approved or denied or simply requested, notify different people, provide different messages, especially when you're talking about communicating with those partners. And then this would be on either decision, an approval or denial. So it just gives you the ability to get more granular in determining the message that you're sending, typically to the partners, upon those refund decisions. Okay, next up is a kind of a fun one for me, the CRM status. So you may know that in the lead system, partners can manually set their CRM status for each lead. So what originally started as essentially a mini CRM for partners ultimately became a way for lead generation companies to incorporate that feedback loop into the lead system. Maybe I'll get lucky and find a lead that this partner has sold. All right. So this is something that they could have always manually come in here and update these statuses. These are the standard ones, but we can upload custom ones as well as recording revenue amounts here. Now, with more of our clients collecting that feedback so that they can use it to optimize the lead distribution for their individual clients, we've added an option for you to bulk upload a CRM status by partner, very similar to the refund process. This way, you do not have to require your partners to manually log in and record those closes or the other status options. And then the other way that this can be accomplished is through the API. So there is an API that allows them to close the feedback loop and set the CRM status per lead ID. So there are 3 ways that you can then close that, which also then leads into our reports. So we do have a set of standard reports around CPA. If you're not looking at them now, I would say definitely start. They are CPA by source and CPA by partner. So it's a very simple calculation. It's going to look at the total amount of leads sold to that partner or sold by that source, divided by the number of leads that were indicated in the close based on that CRM status. But it gives you a great idea of relativity, either amongst your various partners or sources, so that you can make better decisions about the lead distribution. The other the other reports that I want to point out that are new are buying rate reports. These are specifically for clients that work in ping post. So this is going to show essentially the incoming pings, matched pings, how many posts, successful posts that came into the system, broken down by filter set or by source, again, giving you 2 ways to evaluate that incoming traffic. All right. And so then lastly, we're going to end with some quick new setups. So if you are like me, when you're using the boberdoo system, you don't utilize the necessarily all of the information that's required when you're setting up a new vendor. So things like address, city, state. So we do have a new quick add. This is going to really boil it down into the base required fields to set up a vendor. So you have your company name, your first name, last name, email, and then cell phone for 2FA purposes. So that is the quick way to set up a new vendor. And then along that same lines, we do have what we're calling a source wizard, which is to take a lot of those fairly uncommon use cases for the different switches that that appear in these source settings. A lot of these are dealing with third-party affiliates only. A lot of these deal with very specific use cases. So we tried to build something that made it quick and easy for our clients. And so that is the source wizard. What you'll see here is several steps to get from where we, from the beginning to the end of creating a new source. Try to formulate it more in questions to you. So, are you posting a lead in from your website? Is this a direct post from a vendor you're paying $10 per lead for? Or is this a ping post that you're setting up from a vendor? Now, based off of these options, you have the ability to save templates. And then we boiled it down again to those bare minimum things that you need based off of that use case. So if you think about, setting up a direct post from your vendor, is boiled down to the bare minimum things that you need are a source name and then how many people that you want to send this to, whether it's 1 or 5 based off of your distribution rules. Now, once you save that, you're given the specs, but you can go to the advanced options, which is going to lay out the different, all of those other switches that occur in the lead system. So you can dig into it and make those more granular changes. Now, when that source is created, they appear in this list here. So you can go through your typical editing if you did have to make changes to the response type or something like that down the road. All right. So those are the items that I wanted to get through. I would say to end, we will be updating your lead systems with the alert when your system is updated. There'll be a link to our full change log, but you can always visit it at boberdoo.com/changelog. I want to open it up for questions now. I do see we had one from a handful of minutes ago. So the question is, so what about our old API keys? They do not need to be changed. So that is correct. The old API keys and their current functionality will not change. You will see they'll be migrated over to the new API key page in one fell swoop, but you do not need to do anything with your existing API keys. It would only be for you creating new API keys moving forward that this new process will take place. All right. What other questions can I answer? I'm going to go ahead and